The north is cold and full of whispers.
The black cells beneath the red keep smelled of rot and despair. Eddard Stark sat chained to the wall, his leg broken from Jaime Lannister's ambush, his honor shattered by the confessions Cersei had forced from him. He'd called Joffrey the rightful king to save Sansa and Arya. He'd traded truth for his daughters' lives. But Cersei Lannister had lied. Tomorrow, Ned would die on the steps of the great sept of Baelor. Joffrey had overruled his mother's promise of mercy, and the boy king wanted blood. The cell door opened. Varys entered, moving with that peculiar grace that made him seem to glide rather than walk. The spider carried no torch, just a single candle and a leather satchel. "Lord Stark, I bring you something dangerous, Hope." Ned's voice was hoarse from disuse. "I'm past hope, Varys. I die tomorrow. But truths need not die with you." Varys set the candle down and produced parchment, quill, and ink from the satchel. "The game is ending, Lord Stark. Cersei has won. But there's one move left on the board, one truth that could change everything." "What truth?" "The truth you've protected for 15 years. The truth about Jon Snow. Ned's blood went cold." "I don't know what you mean." "I know everything worth knowing. I know that Jon Snow is not your bastard. I know that Lyanna Stark died at the Tower of Joy giving birth to Rhaegar Targaryen's son. I know that you've spent 15 years lying to protect that boy from Robert's wrath." Varys's voice softened. "And I know that secret dies with you tomorrow unless you write it down." Ned stared at the parchment. "If I write that, I condemn Jon. Robert's allies will hunt him. Robert's allies are losing power. Joffrey is a mad child. Cersei is incompetent. Tywin Lannister is overstretched fighting Robb's forces in the Riverlands. The realm is fracturing." Varys leaned closer. "But if your son, if Robb Stark knew that his brother was the rightful heir to the Iron Throne, if the North crowned a dragon with wolf's blood, the realm might unite behind him. Jon could end this war before winter comes, before the real enemy arrives." "What enemy?" "The one you don't believe in. The one the Night's Watch has been warning about for years. The long night is coming, Lord Stark, and only a dragon can face it." Then he reached for the quill. His hand shook as he wrote. The words came slowly, painfully, each letter a betrayal of the promise he'd made to Lyanna. But Lyanna was dead. Jon was alive. And if Ned's death could give Jon a chance to survive, to thrive, then perhaps the lie he'd lived for 15 years would have been worth it. He wrote 2 truths. "Robb, my son, I write this with my last breath. The boy you know as Jon Snow is not my bastard. He is your cousin, born of your Aunt Lyanna and Prince Rhaegar Targaryen at the Tower of Joy. I have protected him from Robert's rage his entire life. He is Aegon Targaryen, the rightful heir to the Iron Throne. Crown him. Unite the realm behind him. The lone wolf dies, but the pack survives." The second truth. Joffrey, Myrcella, and Tommen are not Robert's children. They are the products of incest between Cersei and Jaime Lannister. Joffrey has no claim to the throne. Use this knowledge wisely. Ned signed the letter, then looked at Varys. "How will this reach Robb? I have little birds everywhere. One of them rides north tonight with this letter sewn into his cloak. He'll reach Winterfell in 2 weeks." Varys took the parchment, rolled it carefully, and sealed it with wax. "Lord Stark, you've lived with honor your entire life. You've sacrificed that honor to protect your children. Now let your sacrifice mean something. Let Jon finish what you started." Varys left. The cell door closed. Ned Stark sat alone in the darkness, wondering if he'd just saved the realm or condemned it. 14 days later, Robb Stark stood in the great hall of Winterfell, reading the letter for the 3rd time. Around him, the hall was silent except for the crackling of the hearth fire. Maester Luwin waited nearby, his face gray with shock. Theon Greyjoy stood beside Robb, his expression unreadable. Jon Snow, no, Aegon Targaryen, his brother, his cousin, the rightful king. Robb's hands trembled as he held the parchment. His father was dead, executed by Joffrey Baratheon, the bastard of incest who sat the Iron Throne on a lie. And Jon, who'd gone to the wall to take the black, who'd sacrificed everything because he believed he was a bastard with no place in the world, was the heir to the 7 kingdoms. "My lord," Maester Luwin said quietly, "what will you do?" Robb looked up. "Send a raven to Castle Black. Tell Jon Snow to make no vows. Tell him to come home immediately. Tell him," Robb's voice broke, "tell him his father's truth awaits him. Theon stepped forward. Robb, if this is true, if Jon is a Targaryen, he's my brother. That's what matters. Robb's voice hardened. The Targaryens lost the throne because Aerys was mad and Rhaegar was a fool. But Jon isn't Aerys. He isn't Rhaegar. He's a Stark. He was raised by my father. If anyone can unite the realm, it's him. I'll send the Raven. But my lord, you must understand. If Jon has already taken his vows, the Night's Watch will not release him. The vows are for life. Then we pray he hasn't taken them yet. Robb moved to the window, looking out over Winterfell's snow-covered courtyard. Because if he has, we've already lost. The Raven flew that night, carrying a message that would change the fate of the Seven Kingdoms. Castle Black was bitter cold even in late summer. Jon Snow stood in the armory sharpening his sword with methodical precision. Around him his sworn brothers prepared for the Night's Watch. Pip was joking with Gren. Sam was reading in the corner, trying to avoid the combat drills he hated. Jon's world had become simple here. Train, patrol, survive, no politics, no lordly games, just the wall and the duty that came with it. The door opened. Jeror Mormont, Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, entered with Maester Aemon at his side. Both men looked grave. Jon Snow, come with us. Jon followed them to the Lord Commander's quarters. Mormont closed the door and gestured to a chair. Sit. Mormont picked up a raven scroll from his desk. A message arrived from Winterfell. Your brother, Lord Robb Stark, has ordered you to return home. You're not to take your vows. You're to leave immediately. What's happened? The message doesn't say, only that you're needed at Winterfell for a matter of great urgency. Mormont's eyes were unreadable. Jon, you haven't taken your final vows yet. Technically, you're still free to leave, but I need to know, do you want to? Jon thought about his brothers here, about the Night's Watch, the purpose he'd found beyond the wall, about the life he'd chosen because he had nowhere else to go. I don't know. The Night's Watch is my home now. Maester Aemon spoke for the first time. His voice was frail but clear. Lord Snow, may I speak with you alone? Mormont nodded and left. The door closed. Aemon sat in his chair, his blind eyes fixed on nothing. Come closer, boy. Let me touch your face. Jon knelt. Aemon's withered hands found Jon's cheeks, his forehead, the bridge of his nose. The old maester's fingers traced Jon's features with careful attention. You have a good face, strong bones, a long face, like the Starks. But there's something else, something in the structure. Aemon's voice was barely a whisper. Tell me, Jon Snow, do you dream? Dreams of fire and ice, of great wings beating against a frozen sky, of voices speaking in a language he didn't understand but somehow knew. He'd always dismissed them as nightmares. Sometimes, but they're just dreams. No, they're memories. Blood memories the dragon's blood recognizes itself even after generations. Aemon's hands fell away. Jon Snow, do you know who I am? You're Maester Aemon. You've served the Night's Watch for... I'm Aegon Targaryen, son of Maekar, brother of Aegon V, great-uncle to Rhaegar Targaryen. Aemon's voice broke. Rhaegar was the finest man I ever knew. He would have been the greatest king Westeros ever saw, but he fell in love with a wolf, Lyanna Stark, and that love started a war. Why are you telling me this? Because you need to understand what you are. Who you are. Aemon leaned forward. Rhaegar and Lyanna had a son, a boy born at the Tower of Joy in Dorne, where Lyanna died giving birth. Ned Stark found that boy and raised him as his own bastard to protect him from Robert Baratheon's rage. That boy is you, Jon Snow. You are Aegon Targaryen, son of the Dragon Prince and the Wolf Maiden. You are the rightful heir to the Iron Throne. The words hit Jon like a physical blow. He stood, backing away. No, that's impossible. I'm Ned Stark's bastard. I'm nobody, and you need to leave this place. Aemon's voice was fierce despite his age. The realm is tearing itself apart. The Lannisters murdered your father, Ned Stark, who raised you, who protected you. They've crowned a bastard boy as king. The war will consume the Seven Kingdoms. Unless someone can unite them, unless a dragon with wolf's blood can bridge the divide between ice and fire. I'm not a dragon. I'm a crow. I chose the Night's Watch because you thought you were a bastard with no future. But you're not a bastard. You're a prince, and the realm needs you. Aemon's blind eyes seemed to see into Jon's soul. I know this is hard. I know you never wanted power, Neither did I, neither did Rhaegar. But wanting it doesn't matter. The realm needs leadership. It needs someone who understands both honor and pragmatism. Someone who was raised in the north but carries dragon's blood. That's you, Jon. Only you. Jon sank back into the chair. His world was collapsing. Everything he'd believed about himself, the bastard, the outcast, the crow, was a lie. He was Aegon Targaryen, the son of the Crown Prince Robert killed at the Trident, the nephew of the Mad King who burned men alive. What if I don't want this? Then the realm burns, and the long night comes, and everyone you love dies in the darkness. Aemon's voice softened. Jon, I've lived 100 years. I've served the Night's Watch for most of them. I've watched my family die, my brothers fall, my legacy crumble. But I've never regretted my choice to serve, because I knew that duty mattered more than desire. You know that too. Ned Stark taught you that. Now use that lesson, go south, claim your birthright, end this war, and when winter comes, and it will come, be ready to face it. Jon sat in silence for a long time. Then he stood. If I go south, will you tell the Lord Commander the truth about who I am? If you wish. No, don't tell him. Let him think I'm just answering my brother's call. It's better that way. Jon moved to the door, then paused. Maester Aemon, did Rhaegar know about me? He believed in prophecy, in the prince that was promised. He thought Aemon's voice broke. He thought he was that prince. But perhaps he was wrong. Perhaps it was always meant to be you. Jon left the Lord Commander's quarters, packed his few belongings, said goodbye to Sam, Pip, and Gren, without telling them where he was really going or why. Jeor Mormont met him at the gate. The old bear looked at Jon with something like sadness. You're a good man, Jon Snow. The Night's Watch would have been honored to have you. Take this. Mormont held out his family's ancestral sword, Longclaw Valyrian steel with a wolf's head pommel. You'll need it where you're going. My lord, I can't accept. Yes, you can. I had the pommel changed from a bear to a wolf for you. It's yours. Now go, and whatever duty calls you south, fulfill it with honor. Jon took the sword, mounted his horse. Ghost ran beside him as he rode through the gates of Castle Black, heading south toward Winterfell and a destiny he never wanted. Behind him, Maester Aemon stood on the wall, his blind eyes turned south, whispering a prayer to gods he wasn't sure existed. Let him be strong. Let him be wise. Let him save us all. 28 days after Ned Stark's execution, Jon Snow rode through the gates of Winterfell. The journey from Castle Black had taken 14 days through increasingly hostile territory. The North was mobilizing for war. Every village he passed had sent its men south to join Robb's army. Winterfell itself was transformed. The courtyard bustled with activity, blacksmiths forging weapons, fletchers making arrows, soldiers drilling. War banners hung from every tower. The direwolf of House Stark flew beside banners Jon didn't recognize. Houses sworn to Winterfell, called to arms. Robb waited in the courtyard. When he saw Jon, he dismissed everyone with a gesture. The courtyard cleared. The two brothers faced each other. Robb spoke first. Did Maester Aemon tell you? Yes. Then you know. I know what he said. I don't know if I believe it. Robb crossed the distance between them and embraced Jon. Hard. I don't care if you believe it. You're my brother. You're a Stark. And you're the rightful king. That's all that matters. Jon pulled back. Robb, I'm a bastard. I was raised to follow, not to lead. I don't know how to be a king. Neither did Robert Baratheon. Neither did Aerys Targaryen. Neither did most kings in history. But you know how to be honorable. You know how to fight. You know how to lead men. Robb's voice was fierce. Father raised you the same way he raised me. You're ready for this. You just don't know it yet. And what about you? You're Lord of Winterfell, Warden of the North. The lords will follow you. The lords will follow whoever I tell them to follow. And I'm telling them to follow you. Robb gestured toward the Great Hall. Come, we have work to do. Inside the Great Hall, the northern lords had assembled. Jon recognized most of them. Great Jon Umber, massive and boisterous. Roose Bolton, cold and calculating. Rickard Karstark, stern and weathered. Mage Mormont, fierce despite her age. And others, lords from every major northern house. At the front of the hall stood a small man Jon didn't know, thin with green eyes and a solemn face. Robb spoke to the assembly. Lords of the North, you know why we're here. My father was murdered by Joffrey Baratheon, a bastard born of incest between Cersei and Jaime Lannister. He has no claim to the Iron Throne, but we know who does. Robb gestured to Jon. The boy you knew as Jon Snow is no bastard. He is the son of Lyanna Stark and Rhaegar Targaryen, born at the Tower of Joy. He is Aegon Targaryen, sixth of his name, rightful king of the Seven Kingdoms. Voices shouting, lords arguing, disbelief and anger mixing. Great Young Umber's voice boomed over the chaos. That's a pretty tale, Lord Stark, but why should we believe it? The Targaryens are done. Robert crushed them. We fought for Robert. The small man stepped forward, because I was there. The hall quieted. The man continued. I am Howland Reed, Lord of Greywater Watch. I was Ned Stark's closest friend. I was with him at the Tower of Joy. I watched Lyanna Stark die after giving birth to Rhaegar's son. I watched Ned swear to protect that child. I've kept that secret for 15 years. But now the truth must be told. Lyanna Stark was not kidnapped. She went with Rhaegar willingly. They loved each other. They were married in secret before the gods. Their son, Jon Snow, Aegon Targaryen, is the legitimate heir to the Iron Throne. And if you doubt me, ask yourselves, why would Ned Stark, the most honorable man in the Seven Kingdoms, lie about this? Why would he claim a bastard he never fathered, unless he was protecting something far more important than his own reputation? The hall was silent now. The logic was undeniable. Ned Stark's honor was legendary. He would never have dishonored himself with a bastard unless there was a greater reason. Roose Bolton spoke, his voice soft and dangerous. Let's say this is true. Let's say the boy is Rhaegar's son. Why should we follow him? The Targaryens lost. The dragons are dead. What does this boy offer us except another war? Robb stepped forward. He offers us justice. He offers us a chance to end this war before winter comes. The Lannisters murdered our lord. They've crowned a bastard. They're destroying the realm. Jon can unite the kingdoms, the North, the Riverlands, the Vale, Dorne. He has Stark blood and Targaryen blood. He bridges the divide. And he was raised by Ned Stark. He knows honor. He knows duty. He'll be a good king. Great Jon Umber stood. The North doesn't kneel to southern kings. We didn't kneel to the Targaryens. Why should we kneel now? He walked to the center of the hall, in front of Jon, and knelt. I, Robb Stark, Lord of Winterfell and Warden of the North, pledge my sword, my house, and my life to Aegon Targaryen, sixth of his name, rightful king of the Seven Kingdoms. He is my brother. He is my king. The hall held its breath. Robb looked up at Jon, his eyes fierce. I don't ask the North to kneel to a southern king. I ask the North to follow the wolf who wears the dragon's name. Jon Snow is one of us. He always has been, and he always will be. Mage Mormont was the first to kneel, then Howland Reed, then slowly the other lords knelt, some eagerly, some reluctantly, but all of them kneeling. Even Roose Bolton knelt, though his expression remained calculating. Only Great Jon Umber remained standing. He stared at Jon, evaluating. Then he laughed, a great booming laugh that filled the hall. Fuck it, I'll follow a Stark dragon. Better than some Lannister bastard. He drew his sword and knelt. The king in the north and the south, Aegon Targaryen. The hall erupted in cheers. The king in the north and the south, Aegon Targaryen, the white dragon. The weight of the crown, invisible but already crushing, settled on his shoulders. He looked at Robb, at the lords kneeling before him, at the dire wolf banners mixed with the dragon banners some lords had already prepared. He didn't want this. He'd never wanted this, but Maester Aemon's words echoed in his mind. Duty matters more than desire. Jon spoke, his voice carrying through the hall. Lords of the North, I don't know how to be a king. I was raised to follow, not to lead, but I know how to fight. I know how to honor the men who follow me, and I know that the Lannisters murdered my father, the man who raised me, who taught me everything I know. They've crowned a bastard, they've started a war, and we're going to finish it. Jon drew Longclaw. The Valyrian steel gleamed in the firelight. We march south, we link up with the Riverlands, we make alliances, and we take the Iron Throne, not for glory, not for power, but because the realm needs leadership, it needs justice, and it needs someone who understands that ruling isn't about taking, it's about giving. My father taught me that. Now I'll prove I learned the lesson. The lords roared their approval. Jon sheathed Longclaw and looked at Robb. His brother smiled. You're already a king, Jon. You just needed to realize it. That night, Jon and Robb stood on the battlements of Winterfell, looking out over the snow-covered lands. Ghost sat beside Jon. Grey Wind sat beside Robb. Robb spoke first. You know this changes everything. You're not just my brother anymore. You're my king. I have to treat you differently. No, you don't. When we're alone, I'm still Jon. I'll always be Jon. Jon's voice was quiet. Robb, I'm terrified. What if I fail? What if I make the wrong choices? What if I'm not strong enough? Then you'll have me. And the North, and everyone who believes in you. Robb clapped Jon on the shoulder. You're not alone in this. You're the White Dragon, Jon. Dragon blood, wolf heart. Together, we're unstoppable. Jon looked at his brother, his king, now his subject. What's our first move? We march to River Run, link up with our mother's family, secure the Riverlands. Then we start making alliances. Dorne hates the Lannisters. The Stormlands are divided. The Reach is waiting to see who wins. We need to move fast, strike hard, and make them all see that you're the winning side. And the Lannisters? Jaime is somewhere in the field. We avoid Tywin for now. He's too strong. We harry his supply lines, cut off his support, and make him chase shadows while we build our power base. When we're ready, we face him with overwhelming force. You've thought about this? I've thought about nothing else since I read Father's letter. Robb's expression hardened. They killed him, Jon. They murdered the most honorable man in the Seven Kingdoms because he discovered their secret. I want justice, and I want it written in Lannister blood. So do I, but we do it smart. We do it right. No atrocities. No innocent casualties. We're better than them. Father would want it that way. They stood in silence, two brothers united by blood and purpose, preparing to march south and reclaim a throne one never wanted, and the other was willing to die to help him claim. The White Dragon was awake, and the realm would never be the same. 4 weeks later, the Northern Army stood outside the Twins, the fortress of House Frey that controlled the crossing of the Green Fork. 20,000 men, the largest northern host assembled in generations, waited in formation. Jon sat his horse at the front, Robb beside him. Behind them rode the Northern Lords, their bannermen, and an army ready for war. Ghost and Grey Wind ranged ahead, the two direwolves serving as scouts. The twins loomed before them, two identical castles connected by a bridge, controlling the only viable crossing for an army this size. A rider approached from the castle, a Frey envoy. He stopped before Jon and Robb, his expression carefully neutral. Lord Walder Frey, Lord of the Crossing, welcomes King Aegon and Lord Robb Stark. He invites you to parley regarding passage rights. Robb spoke. Tell Lord Frey we'll meet him in the hall, and tell him we're prepared to negotiate fairly. Walder Frey sat on his chair, not quite a throne, but elevated enough to show his importance. He was ancient, nearly 90, with a twisted smile and cunning eyes. Around him stood dozens of his sons, grandsons, and great-grandsons. The infamous Frey brood. So, Frey wheezed, the bastard boy thinks he's a king now, and the young wolf comes to beg passage. How the mighty Starks have fallen. Robb's hand moved toward his sword. Jon touched his arm, stopping him. Jon spoke calmly. Lord Frey, we ask for passage across your bridge. We're prepared to pay the customary toll and offer fair compensation for any inconvenience. Boy, you're marching an army through my lands. That's not an inconvenience, that's a threat. Frey's smile widened. But I'm a reasonable man. I'll let you pass. For a price. Name it. A marriage alliance. Your friend Lord Stark here will marry one of my daughters, Roslyn, I think. She's pretty enough. And when you take the Iron Throne, if you take it, House Frey gets a seat on your small council, Master of Coin perhaps, or Master of Laws, something with real power. A Frey marriage would secure the crossing and bind House Frey to their cause, but it would also tie Robb to a political marriage. He looked at Robb. His brother nodded slightly. Permission to negotiate. Lord Robb will marry Roslyn Frey, and when I take the Iron Throne, House Frey will have a seat on the small council. You have my word. The word of a boy who didn't know he was a king until a few weeks ago? Frey laughed. I'll need more than that. I want it in writing, signed by you, by Stark, by witnesses, and I want the wedding to happen soon, within the month. No backing out. Robb stepped forward. Done. I'll marry Roslyn Frey. But if you betray us, if you break this pact, the North will remember, and when winter comes, House Frey will freeze alone. Frey's smile disappeared. Careful, boy. You're on my land. I could close the gates right now and watch your army starve. No, Jon said quietly. You couldn't, because if you did, we'd storm this castle and take it by force. You'd die. Your sons would die. And House Frey would end. You're a practical man, Lord Frey. So let's be practical. You give us passage. You get a marriage, a council seat, and the gratitude of the king. Or you try to stop us, and we bury you here. Choose. The hall was silent. Walder Frey stared at Jon with those cunning old eyes, evaluating, calculating. Then he laughed, a wheezing, bitter sound. You've got stones, boy. I'll give you that. Fine. You have your crossing. And Stark has his wedding. But remember, House Frey always gets what it's owed. Always. They crossed the Twins the next day. The Northern Army filed across the bridge, 20,000 men moving south toward River Run and the war that waited beyond. Robb rode beside Jon, his face troubled. I don't trust him. Walder Frey is a weasel. I know, but we needed the crossing, and a marriage alliance with House Frey is better than fighting them. Jon glanced at his brother. Are you sure about this? Marrying Rosalind Frey? I'm sure. Politics requires sacrifice. Father understood that. Now I do too. Robb's expression softened. Besides, I saw her at the feast last night. She's actually beautiful. Kind eyes. I could do worse. You could do better, maybe. But this is what the North needs. What you need. Robb smiled. Don't worry about me, brother. Worry about the Lannisters. Because we're coming for them. The army continued south. The riverlands spread before them, fertile lands scarred by war. Lannister forces had ravaged the countryside, burning villages and slaughtering small folk. The signs of conflict were everywhere. 5 days past the Twins. Northern scouts reported a Lannister force ahead, approximately 50 men, a scouting party or supply caravan. Jon called a war council. Robb, Greatjon Umber, Roose Bolton, and the other lords gathered around a map. 50 Lannisters, Jon said. Not a major force, but they'll report our movements if we let them escape. We need to take them. Fast and quiet. Greatjon grinned. Give me 100 men. We'll crush them. No. Jon pointed to the map. 100 men makes noise. We use 20. Our best fighters, we hit them at night, capture as many as possible, kill the rest. I want prisoners. They'll have information. Roose Bolton's voice was cold. Prisoners are a burden. Better to kill them all. No. We're not the Lannisters. We don't slaughter men who surrender. Jon looked at Bolton. If they fight, we kill them. If they yield, we take them prisoner. Understood? Bolton nodded, though his expression suggested disagreement. That night, Jon led a strike force. 20 northern soldiers, Robb, Greatjon, and himself. They moved through the darkness toward the Lannister camp. The Lannisters had posted guards, but they were poorly positioned. Confident, arrogant. They didn't expect an attack this far from the main battlefields. Jon signaled. Ghost emerged from the shadows and silently killed the first guard, his jaws closing on the man's throat before he could scream. The northern soldiers moved in, swords drawn, moving with practiced efficiency. The Lannister camp erupted in chaos. Men scrambled for weapons. Jon fought through the center, Longclaw cutting through armor and flesh with Valyrian steel precision. Beside him, Robb wielded ice, the massive greatsword devastating in close combat. Within minutes, it was over. 30 Lannisters dead. 20 captured, on their knees with hands bound. And among the prisoners, Jon recognized one face, a face he'd seen at Winterfell years ago, when King Robert visited. Tyrion Lannister. The imp sat on the ground, his hands bound, his expression wry despite his circumstances. Beside him knelt a sellsword, tall, rough, dangerous-looking. Jon approached. Tyrion Lannister, you're far from Casterly Rock. Tyrion looked up. Jon Snow, or should I say, Your Grace. Congratulations on the promotion. I hear you're a king now. Quite the advancement for a bastard. I'm not a bastard, so I've heard. Aegon Targaryen, risen from the dead. Or rather, hidden in plain sight for 15 years. Brilliant strategy, really. Father must be shitting gold bricks. Tyrion's smile was sharp. So what happens now? You kill me? Ransom me? Or do we have a civilized conversation? Jon studied the imp. Tyrion Lannister was infamous youngest son of Tywin, despised by his family, known for his wit and drinking, but also known for intelligence, cunning, survival instinct. We talk in private. Jon had Tyrion and the sellsword brought to his tent. Robb and Greatjon stood guard outside. Inside, Jon poured wine and offered Tyrion a cup. The imp took it, surprised. Most captors don't share wine with their prisoners. I'm not most captors, and you're not most prisoners. Jon sat across from Tyrion. Your father murdered mine. Your sister crowned a bastard as king. Your family is destroying the realm. Give me one reason why I shouldn't execute you right now. Tyrion drank deeply, then set the cup down. Because I'm worth more alive. I know my family. I know their plans, their resources, their weaknesses. I know King's Landing, every passage, every secret, every hidden cache of wildfire the Mad King left behind. And frankly, Your Grace, I despise my sister and nephew more than you ever could. Why should I believe you? Because I have nothing to lose. My father hates me. My sister wants me dead. Joffrey is a monster. Cersei is insane. The only Lannister I care about is Jaime. And he's honorable enough that he'd understand if I switched sides to survive. Tyrion leaned forward. You need advisors. People who understand how the game is played. Ned Stark was honorable, and he died for it. You're honorable too, I can see it. But honor without cunning is just suicide. I can teach you cunning. Jon considered. What do you want in return? Casterly Rock. When this is over, when you've won, I want to be Lord of Casterly Rock. Tywin dies or abdicates, and I inherit. That's my price. And the sellsword? Jon nodded toward the dangerous-looking man beside Tyrion. The man spoke for the first time, his voice casual. Name's Bronn. I fight for whoever pays best. Your Grace pays me more than the Lannisters. I fight for you. Simple as that. Jon stood, walked to the tent entrance, called for Robb. His brother entered. Robb, Tyrion Lannister has offered to join us. Advise us. Help us take the throne. In exchange, he wants Casterly Rock when we win. You want us to trust a Lannister? I want us to be smart. Tyrion isn't like his father. Jon paused. He's a survivor. And survivors know how to adapt. We could use someone who understands King's Landing, who knows our enemies. Robb thought for a long moment. Then he nodded. Fine. But one betrayal, imp, and I'll feed you to Grey Wind. Tyrion raised his cup. Fair enough. Now, shall we discuss strategy? Because your current plan, march south and hope for the best, is going to get you all killed. Tyrion laid out the political landscape of Westeros with brutal clarity. You need 3 things to win, Tyrion said, pointing to a map. First, the Riverlands. You're already moving to Riverrun. Good. Secure your mother's family. Second, allies. The Reach, Dorne, the Stormlands. The Reach is rich and commands the largest army in Westeros. Dorne hates my family for what happened to Elia Martell. The Stormlands are divided between Stannis and Renly Baratheon. You need to secure at least 2 of those 3. How? Jon asked. Marriage, promises, appeals to justice. The Reach wants security and prosperity. Offer them trade deals and protection. Dorne wants vengeance. Give them Lannister heads on spikes. The Stormlands want legitimacy. You're the rightful heir. Use that. But you need to move fast. Every day you delay, Tywin consolidates power. What about King's Landing itself? Cersei is fortifying the city. Joffrey is a mad child, but he's surrounded by Lannister soldiers and Kingsguard. A direct assault would be costly. Better to siege it, starve them out, make them desperate, then negotiate surrender. Robb interjected. And Tywin? His army in the Westerlands? Tyrion smiled grimly. That's where I come in. I know Father's strategies. He's cautious, methodical. He won't commit to a major battle unless he's certain of victory. So we make him uncertain. We hit his supply lines, ambush his scouts, make him chase ghosts. We stretch his forces thin while you build yours. What do you bring? Bronn shrugged. I'm good at killing people and not getting killed. Point me at your enemies, pay me well, and I'll do the rest. How much? Land. Not a lot, just a nice holdfast, some farmland, maybe a village, and a knighthood, Sir Bronn. I like the sound of that. Done. You fight for me, and when we win, you'll be Ser Bronn of the Blackwater. Bronn grinned and shook Jon's hand. Pleasure doing business with you, Your Grace. The next morning, the Northern Army continued south with 2 new allies. one Lannister and one sellsword, both bound to Jon by promises of reward and survival. Tyrion rode beside Jon, offering commentary on the landscape. "You know, Your Grace, you're nothing like I expected. Most kings are pompous, arrogant. You're humble, almost disturbingly so. I didn't want to be king. The best kings never do. It's the ones who want it who ruin everything." Tyrion glanced at Jon. "You remind me of someone. Rhaegar, perhaps. My father always spoke of him with grudging respect, said he was too noble, too idealistic. That's why he lost. I'm not Rhaegar. No, you're better, because you have Stark blood. Northern practicality mixed with Targaryen vision. That combination might actually work." Tyrion paused. "Just don't be too noble, Your Grace. Noble men die, pragmatic men survive. I'll try to be both." "Good luck with that." They rode on toward Riverrun, where the Tully forces waited, where the War Council would form, where Jon would begin building the alliances that would make or break his claim to the throne. Behind them, the North marched, 20,000 strong, loyal to the White Dragon. Ahead, the Riverlands beckoned, scarred and bleeding from Lannister aggression. And in King's Landing, Cersei Lannister sat the Iron Throne beside her son, unaware that the greatest threat to her power was approaching from the north, carrying both Wolf's fury and Dragon's fire. The war for the Seven Kingdoms had truly begun. Riverrun stood where the Red Fork and the Tumblestone met, its walls reflected in the waters that protected it on three sides. The castle of House Tully had held against the Lannister siege for weeks, and now the Northern army approached from the north, 20,000 strong. Jon rode at the front with Robb, Tyrion, and the Northern lords. Ghost ranged ahead, the White Direwolf's presence causing panic among the Lannister scouts who spotted him. The siege lines were evident. Lannister forces camped on the western approach, their banners visible even from a distance. But they were stretched thin, trying to contain Riverrun while watching for northern reinforcements. Tyrion studied the disposition of forces through a brass spyglass. That's Jaime's formation style, aggressive positioning, assuming superiority. He's arrogant, but he's also the best swordsman in Westeros. Don't underestimate him. We're not going to fight him head-on, Jon said. We're going to trap him. The plan was simple but effective. The Northern army would split. Robb would take 10,000 men and circle west, cutting off Jaime's retreat. Jon would take the remaining 10,000 and attack from the north at dawn. Jaime's forces, caught between the hammer and the anvil, would have no choice but to surrender or die. That night, Jon met with his commanders in a grove near the river. The War Council included Robb, Great Jon Umber, Roose Bolton, Rickard Karstark, Tyrion, and Bronn. Jaime has 500 men besieging Riverrun, Tyrion explained. He's overconfident, expecting Tywin to send reinforcements. He doesn't know we've cut his lines of communication. When we attack at dawn, he'll be completely unprepared. Great Jon grinned. I want to be the one who takes the Kingslayer. I'll mount his head on a spike. No, Jon said firmly. We take him alive. He's worth more as a prisoner than a corpse. We can trade him for our own captives, or use him to negotiate with Tywin. And if he doesn't surrender, then we kill him. But we give him the chance. Jon looked around the circle. I know what the Lannisters did. I know they murdered my father. But we're better than them. We offer mercy when we can. We fight with honor. Bolton's expression remained neutral, but Jon saw the calculation in his eyes. The man was dangerous, pragmatic to the point of cruelty. Jon made a mental note to watch him carefully. The attack came at dawn. Northern forces swept down from the hills like a gray tide. Banners streaming, war cries echoing across the water. The Lannister camp erupted in chaos. Jaime Lannister emerged from his tent already armored, his golden hand gleaming in the early light. He rallied his men with practiced efficiency, forming defensive lines even as he assessed the situation. Jon led the charge on horseback, Longclaw drawn, Ghost running beside him. The dire wolf tore into the Lannister lines, his white fur soon stained red. Northern soldiers followed, pressing the attack. Jaime fought like a demon. Even outnumbered, he cut through Northern soldiers with terrifying skill. Jon watched him from across the battlefield and understood why men called him the best swordsman alive. Then Robb's forces appeared from the west. The Lannister line buckled. Men threw down their weapons, kneeling in surrender. Jaime fought on, surrounded but refusing to yield. He killed 2 more Northern soldiers before a massive shape crashed into him. Great Jon Umber, swinging a great sword with enough force to knock Jaime's blade aside. Yield, Kingslayer, Great Jon roared. Jaime, breathing hard, assessed his situation. Hundreds of northern soldiers surrounded him. His men were captured or dead. Continuing to fight was suicide. I yield. They brought him before Jon in chains. The legendary Jaime Lannister, Knight of the Kingsguard, the man who'd killed the Mad King, now a prisoner kneeling in the mud. Jon dismounted and approached. Up close, Jaime was handsome, golden-haired, with green eyes that held both arrogance and intelligence. "Ser Jaime, you're a long way from the Kingsguard Tower." Jaime looked up at Jon and his expression shifted. Recognition, shock, something deeper. "Gods, you look just like him. Rhaegar, I can see it now. You killed my grandfather. I saved the realm." Jaime's voice was defiant. Aerys was going to burn King's Landing. "Burn them all," he kept saying. 500,000 people would have died. I put a sword through his back and ended the Mad King's reign. Call it murder if you want. I call it justice. Jon studied him. History had painted Jaime Lannister as a villain, the Kingslayer, the Oathbreaker, the man without honor. But there was something else in those eyes. Conviction, pain. A man who'd made an impossible choice and spent years living with the consequences. Would you have let him burn the city? So I suppose we're even. You've lost your father to my family. I've lost my honor to yours. Jon knelt so he was eye level with Jaime. "You're going to stay alive, Sir Jaime. You're too valuable as a hostage. But understand this. If you try to escape, if you cause trouble, I'll have you executed. Are we clear?" "Crystal. Though I have one question, Your Grace. If you win, if you take the throne, what happens to my sister, my nephew? I don't want to kill children or women if I can avoid it." Jaime laughed bitterly. "Then you're a better man than Robert Baratheon. He would have celebrated their deaths." "I'm not Robert Baratheon. No. You're Rhaegar's son, which might be worse for my family, or might be better. I suppose we'll find out." Meanwhile, Riverrun's gates opened. Edmure Tully and Brynden Blackfish Tully rode out to meet the northern forces. The Blackfish was a legend. Catelyn Stark's uncle, a warrior who'd fought in wars across Westeros. He was in his 50s, grizzled with sharp eyes that missed nothing. He rode directly to Jon. "So you're the dragon everyone's talking about. You look like a Stark. I was raised as one." "Good. Means you might have sense." Blackfish dismounted and extended his hand. "The Riverlands will follow you, boy. Not because you're a Targaryen, but because you're Ned Stark's son. That man saved my niece's life by marrying her. I owe him, and now I'll pay that debt by helping you take the throne." Edmure Tully was less certain. "Lord Blackfish speaks for himself, not for House Tully. My father, Lord Hoster, is ill. I'm acting lord, and I need to know, what do you offer the Riverlands?" Tyrion stepped forward before Jon could answer. "Protection from the Lannisters, trade agreements with the North, a seat on the small council, and justice for the crimes committed against your people. The Lannisters have burned your villages, raped your women, slaughtered your small folk. King Aegon will give you vengeance wrapped in law." Edmure looked at Tyrion with distrust. "And why should we trust a Lannister? Whoever controls the rivers controls the movement of armies. You need northern protection. The North needs your geography. It's a fair trade." Edmure looked at Jon. "Is this true? You'll protect us? And more than that, I'll end this war. The Lannisters started it. We'll finish it." Jon's voice carried conviction. "Join us, help us take the throne, and when the war is over, the Riverlands will be stronger than ever." Edmure extended his hand. "Then the Riverlands are yours, Your Grace." The Northern and Riverlands lords mingled, celebrating the alliance. Jon sat at the high table with Robb, Edmure, and the Blackfish. Catelyn Stark entered the hall, and the room fell silent. She'd been at Riverrun helping with the siege, separated from Robb for weeks. Now she crossed the hall directly to her son, Robb. She embraced him fiercely. Then she turned to Jon. For a moment they simply looked at each other. Catelyn had never loved Jon. She'd tolerated him in Winterfell because Ned demanded it. But she'd never been kind, never been motherly. Jon had lived his entire childhood under the cold weight of her resentment. Now she knew the truth. Jon wasn't Ned's bastard. He was Ned's nephew, the son Ned had protected at the cost of his marriage's happiness. Catelyn's voice was thick with emotion. "Jon, I owe you an apology. All these years I blamed you for something you didn't do. I hated you for dishonoring Ned, when all along he was protecting you, protecting Lyanna's son." Her eyes filled with tears. Ned sacrificed so much for you, his honor, his reputation, his relationship with me, and I never saw it. I'm sorry, Jon. I'm so sorry." Jon didn't know what to say. He dreamed of this moment, Catelyn apologizing, accepting him, but now that it was happening, he felt nothing but emptiness. The years of cold rejection couldn't be erased with an apology. "Thank you, Lady Catelyn. I know it wasn't easy for you." She touched his face. "You look so much like Lyanna." She was beautiful, kind. Ned loved her so much, and he loved you the same way. Never doubt that. Jon nodded, unable to speak past the tightness in his throat. Catelyn embraced him, the first time she'd ever done so, and Jon felt something break inside him. All the years of loneliness, of being the outsider, the bastard, the boy who didn't belong. But he couldn't cry. Kings didn't cry. So he held Catelyn for a moment, then gently pulled away. "We have work to do, planning the war. We'll talk more later." Jon, Robb, Tyrion, the Blackfish, Edmure, Great Jon, and Roose Bolton gathered around a map of Westeros. Tyrion laid out the strategic situation. Tywin is in the Westerlands with the main Lannister army. 20,000 men. He's waiting to see where you move next. Cersei is in King's Landing with Joffrey, protected by the City Watch and the King's Guard. Stannis Baratheon is at Dragonstone, claiming the throne for himself. Renly Baratheon is in the Stormlands, also claiming the throne, with the support of the Tyrells. You're in the Riverlands with 30,000 men, 20 from the north, 10 from the Riverlands. So we're outnumbered if Tywin, Stannis, and Renly unite against us. Robb observed. They won't unite. They hate each other. Tyrion traced lines on the map. Your play is to make alliances before they do. You need Dorne. They hate the Lannisters for Elia Martell's murder. You need either Stannis or Renly, preferably Stannis, because he's more pragmatic. And you need to neutralize Tywin without fighting him directly. How do we do that? Jon asked. We make him chase ghosts. Robb, you take 10,000 men west into the Westerlands. You won't besiege castles. You'll raid, burn supply depots, cut off mines, hit and run, make Tywin commit forces to chase you while Jon builds alliances in the east. By the time Tywin realizes what's happening, you'll have 50,000 men, and he'll be isolated. The Blackfish nodded approvingly. It's a sound strategy. The Westerlands are rich, but they're also vulnerable if you know where to strike. I've fought in those lands. I can guide Lord Robb. Robb looked at Jon. You're comfortable with this? Splitting our forces? Yes. You're the young wolf. You can handle Tywin's forces better than I can. I'll focus on diplomacy. Building the coalition we need. Then it's settled. Robb stood. I ride west tomorrow with 10,000 men. Jon stays here to coordinate the alliances. We reunite when we're ready to march on King's Landing. The meeting adjourned. Jon walked the battlements of Riverrun afterward, Ghost beside him, looking out over the dark waters of the Red Fork. A voice spoke from behind him. You look troubled, Your Grace. A man stood there, older, perhaps 60, with silver hair and the bearing of a knight. He wore no armor now, but his stance was unmistakably military. Who are you? The man stepped forward into the torchlight. His face was weathered but noble. Barristan Selmy, formerly Lord Commander of the Kingsguard. I served your grandfather. I failed to save him. I served your father. I failed to save him too. I served Robert Baratheon, who built his throne on your family's ashes. I'm done serving false kings. Jon stared. Barristan the Bold, the most legendary knight in Westeros, the man who'd fought in wars for 40 years and never lost his honor. Why are you here? Because I heard that Rhaegar's son had returned. Because I swore an oath to protect the Targaryen line, and I've spent 15 years ashamed that I survived when better men died. Barristan knelt. I offer you my sword, Your Grace. Let me train you as I trained your father. Let me help you become the king Rhaegar would have been proud of. Jon helped him stand. Ser Barristan, I'm not worthy. Rhaegar said the same thing when I first trained him. That's how I knew he'd be a great king. Men who want power are dangerous. Men who accept it reluctantly are the ones who use it wisely. Barristan's eyes were fierce. You have your father's face and your mother's courage. Let me teach you to fight like a king. The training began the next morning. Barristan took Jon to the courtyard of Riverrun, where northern soldiers were drilling. He assessed Jon's skills with a critical eye as Jon demonstrated the forms he'd learned at Castle Black and from his youth at Winterfell. You fight like a Northman, Heavy strikes, power over speed. That's good for the wall. But in the south, you'll face faster opponents, knights trained in tourney combat. You need to learn the high guard, the Westerosi style. For 3 weeks, Jon trained under Barristan's instruction. The knight was merciless, pushing Jon past his limits every day. They drilled from dawn until dusk. Footwork, blade angles, defensive positions, offensive patterns. A king fights not just with his sword, but with his presence, Barristan taught. Every move must be deliberate. Every strike must carry the weight of the crown. Your enemies must see you and know they face their better. Jon learned the high guard technique, the formal style of Westerosi knights. Face-to-face combat, sword meeting sword, honor meeting honor. It was beautiful, elegant, and deadly. But Jon also insisted on training with Bronn. The sellsword had a different philosophy entirely. Forget honor, Bronn said as they sparred in a muddy corner of the courtyard. Honor gets you killed. You fight to win. If that means kicking them in the balls, throwing dirt in their eyes, or stabbing them in the back, you do it. The only rule is, survive. Bronn taught Jon dirty fighting, using the environment, fighting outnumbered, never fighting fair. He showed Jon how to use his size, how to read an opponent's tells, how to exploit weaknesses. The two styles complemented each other, Barristan's honor and precision, Bronn's pragmatism and ruthlessness. Jon absorbed both, becoming a hybrid fighter, honorable when he could afford to, ruthless when necessary. On the 21st day of training, a rider arrived from the south, Dornish colors. The messenger was exhausted, having ridden hard for days. Your Grace, Prince Oberyn Martell sends his greetings. He's approaching Riverrun with 5,000 Dornish soldiers. He wishes to speak with you about an alliance. Jon and Tyrion exchanged glances. Oberyn Martell, the Red Viper of Dorne, legendary warrior and brother to Prince Doran. A man famous for his hatred of the Lannisters. Prepare a welcome, Jon ordered, and someone find out everything we can about Oberyn Martell. Tyrion provided the information over dinner. Oberyn's sister Elia was married to Rhaegar. They had 2 children, your half-siblings, technically. Rhaenys and Aegon. The Mountain, Gregor Clegane, murdered them during the sack of King's Landing. Bashed the baby's head against a wall, raped and killed Elia. Oberyn has spent 20 years wanting revenge on my family for those crimes. So why would he help me? Jon asked. I'm Rhaegar's son by another woman. Rhaegar left Elia for my mother, because you offer him what he wants most. Lannister heads on spikes. And because you're innocent of your father's sins. Ned Stark raised you. That means something in Dorne. They respect honor, even if their methods are unconventional. Oberyn Martell arrived 3 days later. He rode at the head of the Dornish column, a striking figure in red and orange, a spear strapped to his back. His face was handsome, sharp-featured, with dark eyes that burned with intelligence and barely controlled fury. He dismounted in Riverrun's courtyard and walked directly to Jon. For a long moment, they studied each other. So, Oberyn said, you're the son of the man who abandoned my sister, the son of Rhaegar Targaryen and his northern whore. The courtyard went silent. Northern soldiers reached for weapons. Jon raised a hand, stopping them. My mother was Lyanna Stark. She loved her. I'm sorry for what happened to Elia. To your niece and nephew, I'm sorry my father's choices led to their deaths. But I'm not responsible for those choices. I was a baby, and I'm offering you a chance to avenge them. How? By putting you on the throne? Why should I care who sits that cursed chair? Because the people who murdered your sister sit on it now. Cersei Lannister, Joffrey, Tywin. The Mountain serves them. All the monsters who destroyed your family serve the Lannisters. Help me pull them down. Help me give you justice. Oberyn stepped closer, his eyes boring into Jon's. Justice? I want vengeance. I want to hear them scream. I want to watch the light leave their eyes. Then fight for me, because when I take King's Landing, I'll give you exactly that. The Mountain's head, Tywin's head, every Lannister who had a hand in your sister's death. You'll have your vengeance wrapped in law. Oberyn laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. You know what? I like you. You don't bullshit. You don't make pretty speeches about peace and healing. You understand that some crimes can only be paid for in blood. He extended his hand. Fine. Dorne fights for the White Dragon, but I want it in writing. When you win, I get to kill the Mountain personally. Agreed? Agreed. That evening, Oberyn found Jon training with Barristan. The Dornish prince watched for a moment, then called out, "You fight like a knight, all formal and pretty. That'll get you killed by anyone who doesn't care about honor." Barristan bristled. "This is the traditional Westerosi style, which assumes your opponent will fight fair. But what if they don't? What if they use poison, dirty tricks, speed instead of strength?" Oberyn drew his spear, a beautiful weapon with a red shaft. "Let me show you how a Dornishman fights." What followed was a revelation. Oberyn moved like water, his spear darting and spinning, attacking from unexpected angles. He was faster than anyone Jon had ever seen. The spear became an extension of his body, striking and withdrawing before Jon could react. "This is the Viper's way," Oberyn explained. "Speed, poison, unpredictability. You strike fast, strike hard, and make sure they never see you coming. Knights fight with honor. Vipers fight to win." For the next 2 weeks, Jon trained with 3 masters, Barristan teaching knightly honor and precision, Bronn teaching sellsword pragmatism, Oberyn teaching Dornish speed and deception. The combination was devastating. Jon became a fighter who could adapt to any situation, honorable when possible, ruthless when necessary, always unpredictable. On the 14th day of Oberyn's arrival, news came from the west. Robb had captured the Crag, then Ashmark, then Sarsfield. He was tearing through the Westerlands like a gray wind, burning Lannister supplies and forcing Tywin to split his forces. And then the second message arrived, from Castle Black. The letter was brief and dire. "King Aegon, the dead walk beyond the wall. We've lost contact with 3 ranging parties. The wildlings are fleeing south. Something is coming. We need help. Ed Tollett, acting commander, Night's Watch." Jon read the letter twice, his blood running cold. The White Walkers, the army of the dead, the threat Maester Aemon had warned him about. He called an immediate council. Jon, Tyrion, Barristan, Oberyn, Edmure, and Catelyn gathered in the Solar. "The Night's Watch is reporting White Walker activity," Jon said without preamble. "The dead are moving. This is the real enemy. Not the Lannisters, not the throne. The long night is coming, and if we don't unite the realm, everyone dies. Your Grace, I respect you, but the White Walkers are a myth, a story to scare children. They're not a myth. I've seen them before I left Castle Black. The dead tried to kill Lord Commander Mormont. A white, reanimated by the Walkers. It took fire to kill it. The Night's Watch has been fighting them for centuries. They're real, and they're coming south." Oberyn leaned forward. "Let's say you're right. Let's say the dead are real. What do you propose we do about it?" "We secure the throne, and then we mobilize the entire realm to face the real threat. We'll need every soldier, every castle, every resource. But first, we need to be united." Barristan nodded slowly. "That makes strategic sense, Your Grace. If the threat from the north is as dire as you say, we can't afford a prolonged civil war. Robb's campaign in the west is working. Tywin is stretched thin. Now we need to secure the Stormlands, Stannis Baratheon or Renly. One of them needs to join us. Stannis is at Dragonstone. Renly is at Storm's End with the Tyrell army. They hate each other. You'll have to choose one and eliminate the other." "I'm not eliminating anyone. I'm going to convince them both to bend the knee. And if they refuse," Jon's voice was hard, "then they're no better than the Lannisters. The realm needs unity. I'll offer them positions, land, power. But I won't compromise on the throne. It's mine by right. They can accept that or face the consequences." Jon would ride to Storm's End to negotiate with Stannis and Renly. It was a risk. Both Baratheon brothers had armies, but it was necessary. As the council adjourned, a final message arrived. This one from across the Narrow Sea. From Essos, Varys, who had fled King's Landing after Ned's execution, had sent a raven. The message was coded, but Tyrion translated it. "Daenerys Targaryen has hatched 3 dragons in the Dothraki Sea. She is building an army in Qarth. She claims the Iron Throne. She has heard rumors of Jon Snow's true identity. She will come to Westeros. Varys." Jon stared at the message. Daenerys Targaryen, his aunt, his family. The last Targaryen besides himself, and she had dragons. "This changes everything," Tyrion said quietly. "If she comes to Westeros with dragons and an army, she could destroy you. Or she could be your greatest ally. She's my family. I'm not going to fight her." The Dance of the Dragons was fought between Targaryen family members. They tore the realm apart fighting over the throne. Jon folded the message. Then I'll make sure we don't repeat history. When she arrives, we'll negotiate. We'll find a way to share power or divide responsibilities. But we won't fight. You're very optimistic for a king. I'm very tired of war. If Daenerys and I can work together, we can end this conflict and focus on the real enemy. If we can't, Jon's voice trailed off. Then I'll deal with that when it happens. On the far side of the narrow sea, in the city of Qarth, Daenerys Targaryen stood on a balcony overlooking the harbor. 3 dragons perched nearby, Drogon, Rhaegal, and Viserion. They were still small, the size of cats, but they were growing. Jorah Mormont approached. "Khaleesi, I have news from Westeros. A boy claiming to be Rhaegar's son has declared himself king. He's raised an army. The North, the Riverlands, and Dorne follow him." Daenerys turned. "Rhaegar's son? That's impossible. Aegon died as a baby. Not that Aegon. A different son. The product of Rhaegar's relationship with Lyanna Stark. He was raised in secret by Eddard Stark. Now he's come forward." Daenerys' emotions warred. Shock, anger, curiosity. If he's Rhaegar's son, then he's my nephew. My family, yes. But he's also your rival. The lords of Westeros may choose a man over a woman. You need to decide, Khaleesi. Do you want the throne, or do you want family? They were her children, born of fire and blood. But she'd spent her entire life alone, sold and traded and exiled. The thought of having family, real family, was intoxicating. "I want both," she said finally. "I'll go to Westeros. I'll meet this Aegon, and I'll decide if he's worthy of my brother's name. If he is, we'll rule together. If he isn't," she touched Drogon's scales, "then I'll take what's mine." Jorah nodded. "It will take months to build a fleet, gather supplies, and sail to Westeros. Where do you want to land?" "It's where I belong." Daenerys' voice hardened. "Send word to Pentos, to Volantis, to the slavers I freed. Tell them Daenerys Stormborn is coming home, and anyone who stands in my way will burn." Back in Westeros, Jon prepared for the journey to Storm's End. He would take a small force, 500 men, including Barristan, Oberyn, and Bronn. Tyrion would come as an advisor. Ghost would accompany them. The night before they departed, Jon met with Catelyn in the Godswood at River Run. The weirwood tree stood silent, its face carved into the white bark. "Lady Catelyn, I wanted to thank you for accepting me, for supporting this." She touched his cheek. "You're Ned's son in every way that matters, and you're Lyanna's son by blood. That makes you family. I'm sorry I didn't see it before." "I understand why you didn't. It wasn't your fault." "Yes, it was. I was cruel to you, cold, resentful, and you were just a boy who needed a mother." Her eyes filled with tears. "I can't undo those years, but I can be here now, and I can tell you what Ned would say if he were alive. He'd be proud of you. So proud." The wall between them was crumbling, replaced by something that might, eventually, become love. The next morning, Jon's company rode south towards Storm's End. The journey would take 2 weeks through the Stormlands, dangerous territory where loyalties were divided between Stannis and Renly. But Jon rode with confidence. He had Barristan the Bold at his side, the Red Viper of Dorne, and the cunning of Tyrion Lannister. He had Ghost, his direwolf, and he had Longclaw Valyrian steel singing in its sheath. The white dragon was moving, and the realm would bend or it would break. Behind them, at River Run, Catelyn watched them go. She whispered a prayer to the old gods. "Protect him, protect them all, and let this war end before winter comes." But winter was already here. Beyond the wall, the Night King watched the south with eyes of ice. His army of the dead grew with every passing day. Whites by the thousands, White Walkers leading them, all marching toward the wall. The long night was coming, and only a dragon could face it. Storm's End rose from the cliffs like a clenched fist of stone. The castle had never fallen to siege in its entire history, its walls so thick and round that no ram could break them, no siege engine could crack them. Stannis Baratheon held it now, his banners flying from the battlements, the crowned stag of House Baratheon black on gold. Jon's company approached under a peace banner, 500 northern and Dornish soldiers moving carefully through the Stormlands. The countryside was tense. Renly's forces controlled most of the region from Storm's End south, but Stannis' loyalists held the castle itself and the northern approaches. They stopped a mile from the castle. Jon sent a rider forward with a message. "Aegon Targaryen, 6th of his name. requests parley with Lord Stannis Baratheon. We come in peace to discuss the future of the Seven Kingdoms. The rider returned an hour later. Lord Stannis will meet you, your grace, but he demands you come alone. No guards, no advisors, just you and him. Barristan objected immediately. Your grace, that's suicide. Stannis could kill you or take you hostage. He could, but he won't. Stannis Baratheon is many things, but he's not dishonorable. Jon looked at the castle. He wants to take my measure face to face. I need to do the same with him. Tyrion shook his head. This is madness. At least take Ghost. No, Stannis asked for me alone. I'll honor that. Jon dismounted and handed his reins to Bronn. If I'm not back by sunset, assume the worst and retreat to River Run. He walked to Storm's End alone, Longclaw at his hip, but his hands empty and visible. The gates opened. Stannis' soldiers watched him pass with hard eyes, their weapons ready but not drawn. Stannis Baratheon waited in the castle's great hall. He was a hard man, lean and rigid, with a clenched jaw and eyes that burned with righteous fury. Beside him stood a red woman, tall, beautiful, with red robes and redder hair, Melisandre of Ashai, the Shadowbinder Tyrion had warned Jon about. Stannis spoke first, his voice like grinding stone. So you're Rhaegar's whelp. You don't look like a Targaryen. I look like my mother, Lyanna Stark, the woman who started a war that killed thousands. Stannis' expression was unreadable. Robert loved her, obsessed over her, built his entire rebellion on avenging her kidnapping, and now I learn it was no kidnapping at all. She went willingly. Robert's great love was a lie. Yes, and I'm sorry for that, but I'm not responsible for my parents' choices. I'm here to talk about the future, not the past. Stannis gestured to a chair. Sit. We'll talk. Though I warn you, I don't bend easily. Stannis remained standing, looming over him like a judge pronouncing sentence. You claim the Iron Throne by right of your father, Stannis said. But Robert won the throne by conquest. That makes it his by right and mine by inheritance. Why should I yield to you? Because Robert's conquest was built on a lie. Rhaegar didn't kidnap Lyanna. They loved each other. They were married. The entire rebellion was based on false pretenses. And Aerys is dead. Your grievance was with him, not with Rhaegar's line. Aerys was a mad tyrant. Someone had to stop him. I agree, but stopping him doesn't mean erasing the Targaryen line. My father would have been a good king. Robert admitted as much. If Rhaegar had lived, if he'd taken the throne from Aerys, the realm would have prospered. You know that. Stannis was silent for a long moment. Then, what you say may be true, but law is law. Robert won. His line rules. I am his heir. That's the law. Melisandre spoke for the first time, her voice like silk. The law of men, yes, but there are older laws. The law of prophecy, the law of fire and ice. She moved closer to Jon, studying his face. I have looked into the flames. I have seen the prince that was promised, the one who will stand against the darkness. I believed it was Stannis. But now, she touched Jon's cheek. The flames show me a different truth. A dragon wrapped in wolf's fur. A king who bridges two worlds. You are Azor Ahai reborn. Stannis' jaw tightened. Melisandre, what are you saying? I'm saying the Lord of Light has chosen, and he has not chosen you, Stannis Baratheon. He has chosen this boy. She turned back to Jon. The long night is coming. The enemy marches from the north. Only the prince that was promised can stand against them. Only Azor Ahai can wield Lightbringer and drive back the darkness. You are that prince. Jon felt a chill despite the warmth of the hall. I don't believe in prophecies. Belief is irrelevant. You will face the darkness whether you believe or not. The question is, will you be ready? Melisandre's red eyes burned into his. The dead are coming. I have seen them in my flames. An army that cannot be killed by swords alone. An enemy that grows stronger with every fallen soldier. You will need fire. You will need dragons. You will need faith. Stannis looked between Jon and Melisandre, his expression torn. If the flames have chosen him, if he is truly Azor Ahai, then your duty is not to rule, but to serve, to help him prepare for the war that matters. Melisandre's voice was gentle but firm. You have always done your duty, Stannis. You held Storm's End when Robert commanded. You took Dragonstone when he ordered. You served as master of ships without complaint. Your entire life has been duty. Do not stop now. Stannis sat heavily. the weight of the decision crushing him. For long minutes he said nothing. Jon waited, understanding that this moment would determine the war. Finally, Stannis spoke. "I will support you, not because I want to, not because I believe you deserve it, but because duty demands it. If Melisandre is right, if the darkness is coming, then the realm needs unity. It needs a king who can face that threat. You claim to be that king. Prove it. What do you need from me? Your word. When this war is over, when you sit the Iron Throne, I want Storm's End and the Stormlands in perpetuity for House Baratheon. I want a seat on your small council, Master of Ships, and I want your promise that you'll govern justly, that you won't become another Ares. You have my word. Storm's End is yours. The small council seat is yours, and I swear before you and the Lord of Light that I will rule justly or die trying." Jon took it. The grip was iron hard, testing, evaluating. "Then we have an accord. The Stormlands march with you, Aegon Targaryen. But mark my words, if you fail, if you prove unworthy, I will remove you myself. I wouldn't expect anything less." That evening, Jon met with Stannis' military advisors, including Davos Seaworth. The Onion Knight, Davos was a former smuggler turned loyal advisor, practical and honest. "Your Grace," Davos said, "with Stannis' support you gain 5,000 soldiers and 40 war galleys. That's significant naval power. But you still need to deal with Renly. He has 50,000 men thanks to the Tyrells. If he marches against you, numbers alone could overwhelm your forces. Where is Renly now? High Garden. He married Marjorie Tyrell and secured the Reach's support. He's planning to march on King's Landing within the month." Tyrion, who'd been allowed into the meeting after the initial parley, spoke up. "If Renly takes King's Landing before we do, he'll crown himself king. We need to move faster or negotiate with him." "We'll do both." Jon studied the map. "Stannis, you'll take your fleet north to blockade King's Landing from the sea. Cut off supplies. Make Cersei desperate. I'll take my forces to Harrenhal. It's centrally located. We can move north to King's Landing or south to engage Renly from there. And we'll send ravens to Renly offering negotiation." "He won't negotiate," Stannis said flatly. "He's arrogant. He believes he's already won. Then we'll make him see reason." Jon's voice was hard. "One way or another, the Baratheon brothers will stop fighting each other and focus on the real enemy." The raven was sent to Renly that night. "Lord Renly, I am Aegon Targaryen, rightful king of the Seven Kingdoms. Your brother Stannis has bent the knee. I invite you to do the same. Come to Harrenhal. We will discuss terms. Refuse, and we will consider you an enemy. Choose wisely." Aegon VI, while they waited for Renly's response, a different message arrived. From Essos, from Daenerys Targaryen, "Nephew, I have learned of your claim. I am coming to Westeros with dragons and an army. I do not seek war with you, but I will not surrender my birthright. Meet me at Harrenhal. We will speak as family, as Targaryens, and we will decide the future together. Daenerys Stormborn." Tyrion read the message and whistled. Well, this should be interesting. A family reunion, with dragons. What could possibly go wrong? Daenerys was his aunt, his family, the only other Targaryen alive. But she was also a rival, someone who'd spent her entire life believing the throne was hers by right. When will she arrive? The message is 2 weeks old. She's sailing from Qarth to Dragonstone. Assuming favorable winds, she'll reach Westeros in another 4 weeks. Tyrion paused. "Your Grace, you need to be very careful with her. Daenerys is not a politician. She's a conqueror. She freed the slaves of Slaver's Bay with fire and blood. She has 3 dragons and an army of unsullied Dothraki. If negotiations go badly, she could burn this entire country. She won't. She's my family. And more than that, she's smart enough to know that fighting me means prolonging the war, which means weakening us both before the real threat arrives." Jon stood. "We march to Harrenhal tomorrow. We'll be there when she arrives, and we'll negotiate a solution that works for everyone." Barristan spoke up. "Your Grace, I should mention, I served Daenerys' father. I stood by while Aerys committed atrocities. I failed the Targaryen line once. If I may, I'd like to be there when you meet her, to stand witness, to help bridge the gap between you. Of course, Sir Barristan, your presence might be the only thing that keeps us from killing each other." The cursed castle loomed over the God's Eye, its melted towers a testament to dragonfire from centuries past. The castle was massive, far too large for any garrison to properly defend. but it was centrally located and neutral ground. Jon's forces, now numbering 25,000 with the Stormlanders, set up camp outside the walls. Stannis' fleet sailed north to begin the blockade of King's Landing. Robb's forces continued their harassment of the Westerlands, keeping Tywin occupied. And then, 4 weeks after they'd settled at Harrenhal, the dragons arrived. They came at dawn, 3 shapes in the sky growing larger with impossible speed. The soldiers in the camp panicked, reaching for weapons, shouting in terror. Jon stood in the center of the camp, watching the dragons approach. Ghost stood beside him, the direwolf's white fur stark against the dawn light. The dragons were larger than Jon had expected. No longer cat-sized, but the size of horses now, their wings spanning 20 feet each. Black Drogon, green Rhaegal, cream and gold Viserion. They circled the castle, roaring, announcing their presence to all of Westeros. Then they descended. Drogon landed first, his massive form shaking the ground. Atop him sat a young woman with silver-gold hair and violet eyes. Daenerys Targaryen. She dismounted with fluid grace, her red and black robes flowing around her. Her expression was regal, controlled, showing nothing. Jon walked forward. Behind him, his commanders watched. Tyrion, Barristan, Oberyn, Davos. Ghost followed at Jon's heels. Daenerys studied him as he approached. When they were 10 feet apart, she spoke. "So, you're my nephew, Rhaegar's son." "Yes, and you're my aunt, the last of the Targaryens." "Not the last. There are 2 of us now." She moved closer, examining his face. "You look like him, my brother, Rhaegar. I never knew him. I was born after he died, but Ser Barristan has told me stories. You have his eyes, his bearing. I never knew I was a Targaryen until weeks ago, and yet you claim the throne that should be mine." Her voice hardened. "I spent my entire life in exile. I was sold to a savage. I walked through fire to birth my dragons. I freed the slaves of 3 cities. I earned the right to rule. What have you done except be born?" Jon met her gaze without flinching. "I've united the North, the Riverlands, the Stormlands, and Dorne. I've built an army that's about to take King's Landing. I've trained with the best warriors in Westeros, and I've learned that being born to power means nothing. Using it wisely means everything." He paused. "But you're right. You've earned your claim, just as I've earned mine. So instead of fighting over a throne, let's talk about how we both get what we want." Daenerys' expression shifted. Surprise, interest. "You're not what I expected." "Neither are you. I expected fire and fury. Instead, I see someone who spent years learning to rule, learning to lead, learning to liberate. We're the same, you and I. We both want justice. We both want peace. We both want to rebuild what our family destroyed. So let's stop posturing and talk." A smile touched her lips. "Very well. Let's talk." But first, she looked past him to where Barristan stood. "Sir Barristan, you served my father. You failed him. Why should I trust you now?" Barristan knelt. "Your Grace, I have no excuse for my failures. I stood by while Aerys committed atrocities. I should have stopped him. I should have done what Jaime Lannister did, break my oath to save the realm. Instead, I remained loyal to a mad king. I've spent 15 years ashamed of that choice. All I can do now is serve you and your nephew, help you both become the rulers your father and brother should have been." Daenerys studied him for a long moment. Then, "Rise, Ser Barristan. I forgive you. My father was mad. You couldn't have saved him. But you can help me. Help us." They convened in Harrenhal's great hall, the same hall where Aegon the Conqueror had once held court. Jon's faction on one side, Robb, who'd ridden from the west to attend, Tyrion, Oberyn, Barristan, Davos, Stannis. Daenerys' faction on the other, Jorah Mormont, Missandei her translator, Grey Worm commander of the Unsullied, and advisors from her time in Essos. Jon spoke first. "We both have claims to the Iron Throne. We can fight over it and tear the realm apart, or we can find a solution that serves everyone. I propose this. I become king of the 7 kingdoms. You become queen, equal in authority. We rule together, sharing power. The small council reports to both of us. Major decisions require both our consent. Equal authority sounds fair, but history shows it doesn't work. The Dance of the Dragons proved that 2 Targaryens with equal claim will eventually fight. Not if we have different responsibilities. I'll handle Westeros, the day-to-day governance, the military, the political alliances. You'll handle Essos, maintaining the peace in Slaver's Bay, building trade relationships, ensuring the cities you freed remain free. We split our time. 6 months in Westeros, 6 months in Essos. And we build a legacy together, not as rivals, but as partners. And marriage? Daenerys asked pointedly. Traditionally, Targaryens married each other to keep the bloodline pure. Jon felt the weight of every eye in the hall. I won't marry you, not because I don't respect you, but because we need alliances. I'm going to marry Marjorie Tyrell. It secures the reach. You should marry someone who brings strategic value. Perhaps, he hesitated, perhaps Robb, a marriage between Targaryen and Stark would unite ice and fire permanently. The young wolf? She studied Robb with new interest. He's already married, isn't he? To Rosalind Frey, but that was a political marriage to secure a crossing. It can be annulled. Jon looked at Robb. If you're willing. He approached Daenerys, studying her as she studied him. Your Grace, he said formally. I'm a Stark. We value loyalty, honor, family. I won't lie to you. I don't love you. I don't know you, but I can see you're brave, strong, intelligent. If a marriage between us helps end this war, helps unite the realm, then I'll do it. For duty, and perhaps, in time, we could become more than a political alliance. Daenerys smiled, a real smile, warm and genuine. You're honest. I like that. Most men lie to impress me. You just told me the truth, even though it wasn't flattering. She extended her hand. Very well, Robb Stark. I'll marry you on one condition. You treat me as an equal, not a prize, not a conquest, a partner. I wouldn't dare treat you any other way. Robb took her hand. The dragons would eat me. Laughter rippled through the hall. The tension broke. Daenerys and Robb continued talking, a spark of chemistry evident despite the arranged nature of the match. Tyrion leaned close to Jon. Well played, Your Grace. You just secured the most powerful alliance in Westerosi history. Stark and Targaryen united through marriage. The realm will have no choice but to accept you. Jon nodded, but his attention was drawn to the entrance of the hall. A young man had entered, tall, muscular, with dark hair and blue eyes. He carried a blacksmith's hammer and looked uncomfortable in the Hall of Lords. Who is that? Jon asked. Davos answered. That's Gendry, Robert Baratheon's bastard. He was traveling with me when we joined Stannis. He's a good lad, strong, skilled smith. Jon studied Gendry with sudden interest. Robert's bastard, which meant Gendry carried Targaryen blood through his grandmother, Rhael Targaryen. Tyrion, what was that theory you mentioned? About Baratheon bastards and dragon bonding? That anyone with Targaryen blood, however diluted, might be able to bond with a dragon. But it's just a theory. It's never been tested with blood as diluted as Gendry's. He's only 1/8 Targaryen. Tyrion paused. Why? You're not thinking. I'm thinking we have 3 dragons and 2 riders. If Gendry could bond with Viserion, we'd have 3 dragon riders. That changes the war completely. It could also kill him. Dragons don't bond with just anyone. They're not horses. Jon called Gendry over. The young man approached nervously, clearly uncomfortable being the center of attention. Gendry, I'm told you're Robert Baratheon's son. Bastard, Your Grace. I'm nobody. You're the son of a king. That means you have royal blood. Targaryen blood, through your grandmother. Jon gestured to where Viserion was perched outside the hall, visible through the windows. I want you to try something. I want you to approach Viserion. See if he'll let you touch him. Gendry went pale. Your Grace, I'm just a smith. I'm not a dragon rider. You don't know what you're capable of until you try. Jon's voice was firm but kind. I'm not ordering you, I'm asking. Will you try? Then he straightened his shoulders. All right, I'll try. But if I die, I'm haunting you. They walked outside together. Jon, Gendry, Daenerys, and the commanders. Viserion watched their approach with golden eyes, his cream and gold scales gleaming in the afternoon sun. Daenerys spoke to the dragon in High Valyrian. Viserion, this one would touch you. He carries dragon blood, however thin. Will you accept him? The dragon sniffed, his nostrils flaring. Gendry stood frozen, trembling but not running. Slowly, carefully, Gendry extended his hand. Viserion's head moved forward. His snout touched Gendry's palm. The dragon's eyes half closed, and a rumbling sound came from his throat. Not a growl, but something almost like a purr. Bonding. Daenerys' eyes widened. Impossible. The blood is too diluted. It shouldn't work. But it did. Jon felt a surge of triumph. We have 3 dragons, 3 riders, and now we have an advantage no one can match. Over the next week, Gendry trained with Viserion while Jon trained with Rhaegal. Daenerys taught them the basics: how to mount, how to command in High Valyrian, how to feel the dragon's movements and anticipate their needs. Flying was terrifying and exhilarating. Jon sat astride Rhaegal, his father's namesake dragon, and soared over Harrenhal. Below, the armies looked like toys. The god's eye was a mirror of silver. And for the first time, Jon understood what it meant to be Targaryen. "This is what our family built empires on," Daenerys said as they flew side by side. "Dragon power, not just the ability to destroy, but the ability to inspire awe, to make people believe in something greater than themselves. And we'll use it to protect, not destroy," Jon replied. "The dragons will be our shield against the darkness, our weapon against the dead. You really believe the dead are coming, don't you?" "I know they are. I've seen them, and when they arrive, these dragons will be the only thing standing between humanity and extinction." They returned to Harrenhal to find a messenger waiting. From King's Landing, from Cersei herself. The message was brief and venomous. "You have no claim to my son's throne. You are pretenders and traitors. Come to King's Landing and you will die. I have wildfire, I have the city watch, I have the loyalty of the people. You have nothing but delusions." Cersei Lannister, Queen Regent. Tyrion read the letter and sighed. "My sister has lost what little sense she had. She's going to burn the city rather than surrender it." "Then we don't give her the chance." Jon called a war council. "We have 3 dragons, 40,000 soldiers, and a fleet blockading the harbor. We surround King's Landing. We neutralize the wildfire caches. Dany, Gendry, and I will fly over the city and burn them in controlled bursts before Cersei can use them. Then we offer terms: surrender, and the royal children live. Refuse, and we storm the gates." Stannis nodded approval. "A solid plan. But you need intelligence on where the wildfire caches are located." "I know where they are," Tyrion said quietly. "The Mad King left detailed maps. I studied them when I was Master of Coin. There are caches beneath the Sept of Baelor, beneath the Red Keep's armory, beneath the Dragon Pits, and beneath the Dragon Gate. I can mark them for you. Then we move in 3 days. We march on King's Landing. We end this war, and we secure the throne before winter comes." The march to King's Landing took 5 days. The combined army, 40,000 strong, including Northmen, Rivermen, Stormlanders, Dornishmen, Unsullied, and Dothraki, was the largest host Westeros had seen since Robert's rebellion. They surrounded the city, cutting off all routes in and out. Stannis' fleet blockaded Blackwater Bay. The dragons circled overhead, visible to everyone in the city. The small folk watched from the walls, their expressions a mixture of terror and awe. Some cheered, recognizing the dragons as symbols of old Valyria. Others wept, fearing the return of Targaryen rule. Jon, Daenerys, and Gendry took to the skies. Using Tyrion's maps, they located the first wildfire cache beneath the Sept of Baelor. Drogon descended and Daenerys commanded, "Dracarys." Dragonfire struck the cache. The wildfire ignited in a massive green explosion, but it was controlled, directed upward rather than outward. The Sept survived intact. The cache was destroyed. They repeated the process at each location: the Dragon Pits, the Armory, the Dragon Gate. Each explosion was controlled, preventing collateral damage. By the end of the day, Cersei's ultimate weapon was gone. Jon flew to the Red Keep and landed Rhaegal in the courtyard. The City Watch had abandoned their posts, fleeing in terror of the dragons. Only the Kingsguard remained, standing before the throne room. Jon dismounted. Longclaw was in his hand. "Stand aside, I don't want to kill you." The Kingsguard looked at each other. Then, one by one, they knelt. "Your Grace," said Balon Swan, "we serve the king. But Joffrey is no king. We surrender." Jon entered the throne room. Cersei sat on the Iron Throne, Joffrey beside her. Tywin Lannister stood nearby, his expression calculating. "Aegon Targaryen," Cersei spat. "You have no right. The throne is mine by law, by blood, by conquest." Jon's voice carried through the hall. "Cersei Lannister, Joffrey Waters, I charge you with treason, murder, and crimes against the realm. You will stand trial. I am the queen. You can't." Tywin stepped forward. "Cersei, be silent." He looked at Jon. "Your Grace, I offer the surrender of House Lannister. The city is yours. My daughter and grandson will submit to your justice. I ask only that you show mercy to my grandchildren. They are innocent. Myrcella and Tommen will be spared and sent to Dorne under Prince Oberyn's protection. Joffrey, Jon looked at the boy who'd ordered Ned's execution. Joffrey will be stripped of all titles and sent to the Wall. He wanted to be a warrior. Now he'll fight for the realm. Cersei screamed, "You can't take my son. I won't allow it. You have no power here." Jon gestured, and northern soldiers entered. "Take her to the Black Cells. Take Joffrey to be prepared for transport to Castle Black. And someone find Tyrion. He's about to become Lord of Casterly Rock." Tywin's execution was held 3 days later. He was beheaded in the courtyard of the Red Keep, his crimes read aloud to the assembled crowd. Jon swung the sword himself, remembering Ned's lesson. The man who passes the sentence should swing the sword. Cersei was imprisoned for life. Jaime, released from captivity, was stripped of his Kingsguard cloak but allowed to return to Casterly Rock as Tyrion's advisor. The throne room was renovated. The Iron Throne, partially melted by Drogon, was reforged into something new, a throne of wood and stone and iron, symbolizing the union of all the kingdoms. Jon's coronation was held 1 week after the city's fall. He knelt before the High Septon, and the crown was placed on his head. Not the Targaryen crown, but a new crown, bearing the symbols of all 7 kingdoms. Aegon Targaryen, 6th of his name, King of the Andals, the Rhoynar and the First Men, Lord of the 7 Kingdoms, and Protector of the Realm. Beside him, Daenerys was crowned as well. Daenerys Targaryen, 1st of her name, Queen of the Andals, the Rhoynar and the First Men. Khaleesi of the Great Grass Sea, Breaker of Chains, Mother of Dragons. And for the first time in decades, peace. But the peace lasted only 3 months. The Raven arrived from Castle Black on a cold morning. Jon was in a small council meeting when the message was delivered. He read it, and his blood turned to ice. The wall has fallen. The Night King broke through at Eastwatch by the sea. The army of the dead is marching south. We estimate 100,000 whites, hundreds of White Walkers, and the Night King himself. We need every soldier, every dragon, every weapon. The long night has begun. Eddard Stark, commander of the Night's Watch. Jon dropped the scroll. My father is alive. He's alive. At Castle Black, Jon's voice was hollow with shock. Varys must have saved him, smuggled him out of King's Landing before the execution. He's been hiding at the Wall this whole time. That's wonderful, but also irrelevant, Daenerys said urgently. The dead are coming. We need to mobilize the realm. Now, the war for the Dawn has begun. Every man who can hold a weapon marches north. Every castle sends its stores of dragon glass and Valyrian steel. Every smith begins forging weapons. We have weeks, maybe less, before the dead reach the populated regions. The realm mobilized with desperate speed. 50,000 soldiers from every kingdom marched north. Wagons carried dragonglass weapons forged by the thousand. The 3 dragons flew north, carrying Jon, Daenerys, and Gendry. They met the army of the dead at Queen's Crown, a small fortification south of the Wall. The northern forces had prepared defensive positions, trenches, stakes, barriers soaked in wildfire. Jon stood with his commanders, watching the horizon. Beside him, Robb, Daenerys, Oberyn, Barristan, Stannis, Tyrion, and Ned Stark. Seeing his father alive had been overwhelming. They'd embraced, both men weeping, unable to speak through the emotion. But there was no time for reunion. The dead were coming. How many? Jon asked. At least 100,000, Ned said quietly. Maybe more. They've been building their army for years beyond the Wall. Every wildling they killed, every ranger, every villager, they all joined the army of the dead. And the Night King? He's leading them. Blue eyes, ice armor, riding an undead giant. He has power over ice itself. He can shatter steel with a touch, freeze men solid, raise the dead with a gesture. Daenerys looked at Jon. We have dragons, we have fire, that has to count for something. It does, but we need to kill the Night King. He's the key. Kill him and the army falls. At least, that's the theory. The dead appeared at dusk, a tide of corpses, shambling forward with mindless determination. Their eyes glowed blue. Their flesh was rotted. They made no sound except the scrape of bone on frozen ground. Behind them, the White Walkers rode on dead horses, tall, elegant, terrible. Their armor was made of ice that seemed to shift and flow. Their weapons were ice blades that could shatter steel. And at the back, the Night King. He was larger than the others, his armor more elaborate, his eyes a brighter blue. He rode an undead giant, and his presence radiated cold that froze the air itself. "Light the trenches," Jon commanded. Archers fired flaming arrows. The trenches erupted in fire, creating a wall of flame between the living and the dead. The whites, mindless and driven, walked straight into the fire. Thousands burned, their bodies collapsing into ash. But thousands more came behind them. They filled the trenches with their bodies, creating bridges of corpses over the flames. Dragons. Now. Drogon, Rhaegal, and Viserion took to the sky. Dragonfire swept across the white army, incinerating entire sections. The smell of burning flesh filled the air. The screams of the dying, those few whites that still had vocal cords, echoed across the battlefield. But it wasn't enough. The whites kept coming. The armies clashed. Northern soldiers fought with dragonglass spears and Valyrian steel swords. The Unsullied formed shield walls, their discipline holding against the mindless assault. The Dothraki charged on horseback, their araks swinging. Jon fought in the front lines, Longclaw cutting through whites with Valyrian steel efficiency. Ghost was beside him, the direwolf's jaws tearing into the dead. Robb fought nearby with ice, the massive greatsword crushing skulls and severing limbs. The White Walkers advanced. One approached Jon, its ice blade gleaming. Jon parried with Longclaw, and the Valyrian steel held. He struck back, and the White Walker shattered into ice crystals. All the whites it had raised collapsed simultaneously. "Target the White Walkers," Jon shouted. "Kill them and their whites fall." The battle raged for hours. The living held their ground, but barely. For every white they killed, 2 more took its place. Then the Night King moved. He dismounted from his giant and walked toward the center of the battlefield. The fighting slowed, both sides sensing the importance of this moment. Jon stepped forward. Longclaw was in his hands. "This is between us. Stop this. End this. Let the dead rest." The Night King didn't speak. He drew his ice blade and pointed it at Jon. A challenge. They fought. The Night King was faster than any opponent Jon had faced. His blade moved like winter wind, striking from impossible angles. Jon parried desperately, Longclaw ringing against ice, his muscles screaming with effort. The Night King was stronger, older, more experienced. He'd been fighting for thousands of years. Jon was losing. The Night King's blade slashed across Jon's chest, cutting through armor, drawing blood. Jon fell to one knee, gasping. The Night King raised his blade for the killing blow, and Ned Stark tackled him from the side. "Jon, now do it." Jon surged to his feet. Longclaw drove forward, through Ned's body, through the Night King's chest. The Night King shattered. His body exploded into ice crystals, the fragments dissolving into nothing. And across the battlefield, every white collapsed. Every White Walker crumbled. The army of the dead fell as one, their animating force destroyed. Silence. Absolute silence except for the wind and the distant crackle of dying fires. Jon caught Ned as he fell. The ice had spread across his father's body, freezing him from the inside out. "Father, no." Ned's voice was barely a whisper. "You did it, son. You saved the realm. Your mother would be so proud. Don't go. Please, we just got you back. I'm not your father, but I loved you like one. Now go. Be the king you were meant to be. Be better than all of us." Ned Stark died in Jon's arms for the second time, his body frozen, his sacrifice complete. Jon wept. Around him the armies of the living stood silent, honoring the man who'd given everything to save them all. They burned Ned's body on a pyre that night, along with the 10,000 soldiers who'd died in the battle. Jon lit the fire personally, watching as the flames consumed the last piece of his childhood. Robb stood beside him, tears streaming down his face. He died a hero. That's what the songs will say. He died saving the realm. He died because I wasn't strong enough, because I needed him to save me. No, he died because he was Ned Stark. He always put duty above everything, even his own life. Robb gripped Jon's shoulder. We honor him by finishing what he started, by building the realm he dreamed of. The victorious army marched south, carrying their wounded, singing songs of the battle. When they reached the capital, the small folk lined the streets, cheering. They'd heard the news. The dead were defeated. The long night was over. The dragons had saved them. Jon's coronation was held again, this time with the full ceremony. He married Marjorie Tyrell in the Great Sept, securing the Reach's eternal loyalty. Robb married Daenerys in the Godswood, uniting Stark and Targaryen. Gendry was legitimized as Gendry Baratheon and given Storm's End. Bronn was knighted and given the twins, displacing House Frey for their treachery. Tyrion remained Lord of Casterly Rock and Master of Coin. Oberyn became Master of Laws. Stannis became Master of Ships. Davos became Master of Whisperers. The realm was rebuilt. Trade flourished. The dragons patrolled the skies, symbols of the new order. And on a cold evening 5 years later, Jon stood on the battlements of the Red Keep, watching the sun set over King's Landing. Beside him stood his children, a son and daughter, named Rhaegar and Lyanna. They played with Robb and Daenerys' twins while Ghost watched over them all. Marjorie joined him, slipping her hand into his. "You look troubled, husband, about everything we lost to get here, and everything we gained. Peace. Unity, a realm that works." She leaned against him. "Ned would be proud of you." "I hope so." The sound echoed across the city, a reminder that the Age of Dragons had returned. But this time, the dragons served the realm, protected it, united it. The wheel was broken. A new order had begun, and Jon Snow, Aegon Targaryen, the White Dragon, the king who united ice and fire, had fulfilled his destiny. Let us know what you'd like to see next. The end.